This is PropertyBT, a podcast of BT correspondents.
In land-scarce Singapore, property is gold. Private home and HDB resale prices have risen multifold island-wide since when I started work in the 1990s. Many of us wish our families could have bought more property a long time ago and held on to them. A few Singaporean families had the foresight and built a real estate empire in the span of 3 generations. Today, we'll hear from one of them. Welcome to PropertyBT. I'm Leslie Yee, Senior Correspondent of the Business Times. Rachel Teo is the Director of Daniel Teo Group of Companies and co-founder of real estate investment platform Fraxtor. She is a third-generation leader of a family whose roots in the real estate business in Singapore can be traced to her grandfather and his brother. The Teo brothers, Tai Cho and Tai Hong, emigrated to Singapore from Fujian, China in the 1940s. They started accumulating land in Singapore in the 1950s as they anticipated a surge in demand for accommodation amid Singapore's rebuilding post-World War II. Today, the family has branched out with ventures in real estate, heritage properties, aging, and local arts scene. Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you, Leslie, for having me on this podcast.
Rachel, what is it like growing up as a 3G member of a family that is involved in real estate? And why did you join the family business?
I remember when I was very young, my grandfather actually would take us on rides and he would say, Jia Hong, and then everybody would pile in a car and then go for a ride. And then I realized that he was actually looking at properties. And then when I grew older, I guess in my teenage years, it was more hands-on exposure with my father, going to sites to have a look. Then I remember one in particular where I was actually quite badly bitten by sandflies.
Oh.
I actually joined the family business in 1993.
Wow, quite a long time back.
Yes. You know, it was a long journey. I wanted to be an architect, but my grades weren't good enough. So I thought, why not join the family business where actually you can still influence how people live through the built environment?
Interesting indeed. What exactly is it like working with your father, Daniel Teo?
Oh, I think we had our differences, of course, but he had always been a strong proponent of conservation. And I think that influenced our decision in investment portfolio where we've invested in quite a lot of heritage buildings.
So there you are, Rachel, diligently tending to your family's business. Then you decide to do something on your own. You go and co-found a new business called Fraxtor, which aims to provide investors the opportunity to invest in real estate with a small amount of capital. Rachel, why did you set up Fraxtor?
Well, Fraxtor was started in 2017. I met Oliver, my co-founder, in 2016, and we both had this vision where we wanted to make global real estate actually accessible. I had friends who were asking, say, oh, can you invest in this nursing home or this hotel property or this student accommodation, actually, but all overseas. So I thought, oh, it's interesting that people have the interest, right? But the quantum of investment was still quite large. Doing due diligence, I think, was also difficult. So I said, there may be an opportunity. How do we bridge that gap? Hence, the birth of Fraxtor, where we try and make global real estate accessible to investors with lowering the quantum required and also introducing them to different jurisdiction and different types of real estate.
From what I understand, I guess at Fraxtor, you can invest in a fraction of a real estate property or project. And yes, you make this more accessible for the man in the street. But currently, if I'm not wrong, it's open mainly to high net worth. So you still need to have a few $100,000 of income and so on in order to qualify, right?
Yes. Currently, it's true, but it is within our business plan to open it to retail investors.
Any timeline in terms of when you think the platform will open up to retail investors? I guess there's a lot of regulatory issues, right?
Yes. You know, when you open to retail, you need a bigger compliance team. So I think our plan probably next year or the year after
Quite ambitious. So you
Quite
must
ambitious.
be making some progress with the regulators and so on, I guess.
Yes, I am hopeful.
Very good. And how is the business doing?
Well, when we first started in 2019, we started off with a residential development, and then we moved on to condos, and then we moved on to different types of real estate like hotels. We even did a Tesla showroom in Bangkok. Our latest project, working with Capital Land, offering a food factory project. I think that was a huge validation for us.
How does the investment in the food factory compare with more traditional projects in residential and in landed housing?
I think there are interest in different real estate sectors. Food factory is one because there is food delivery now, which is very common. Central kitchens, for example. And I think food sustainability has also come up in investors' mindset. So I think introducing something new was interesting for them.
Separately, I guess, Rachel, you and your family do actively give back to the community. For example, you and your father founded the private museum in 2010 as part of your patronage of the arts. I wonder, if you see business as purely about making money, the money earned then allows you to do good to fund worthy causes. Rachel, how do you see a property development and investment business contributing to the wider community?
The private museum, actually, we see it as our own outreach to the wider community. But there's also real estate involved behind it in terms of finding a new space, having it renovated, doing exhibitions for the private museum or for the Singapore Dance Theatre. So there's still the real estate element to it.
Yes, I guess with the private museum, you combine arts and real estate to contribute to the community. But I suppose with the general public, sometimes real estate landlords do not enjoy the best of reputations, right? I mean, many small businesses, entrepreneurs complain that rental costs in Singapore are high, and the villain is often the greedy landlord. Rachel, do you think landlords in Singapore can do more to help businesses succeed and entrepreneurs flourish?
Yes, I think so. And I've seen different projects coming up. For example, we did a project called The Yards, which is in Joo Chiat Place. It was tough during the COVID period, especially for our tenants. We did do our best to help our tenants as well because it wasn't clear when the rental rebates were given back from the government. We did give rebates back, even more actually, to help through the difficult period. So I would say, no, not all landlords are bad.
Okay, still to come. Are property taxes too high? The thorny issue of inheritance, should it be taxed? Also, could retirement housing be the next property frontier? That's after the break.
Lens on Singapore is now bigger and better. The same deep dive exploration of socioeconomic and geopolitical issues which impact our lives here in Singapore and the region is now a video podcast. If watching a conversation is your thing, join Clarissa Montero in monthly conversations about things that matter. Subscribe to the BT Lens On playlist in the podcast tab of the Business Times YouTube channel and start watching today. BT Lens On Singapore, now available in audio and video.
And now, back to PropertyBT, a podcast of BT correspondents.
Welcome back to PropertyBT. I'm Leslie Yee. Homeowners pay transaction-related taxes when buying a home and recurring property taxes. Rachel, what do you think of the level of property taxes in Singapore?
I think property taxes are a necessary part of any functioning economy. They contribute to public services and help regulate the property market. That said, I do have concerns about the ever-increasing rate of property taxes in Singapore. The current system pegs property tax to achievable market rentals, which can fluctuate through the year depending on economic conditions. And usually property taxes are, you pay before, right? They do it in December and then you start paying in January. So this raises questions whether such a system remains fair, especially during periods of market volatility.
Do you have any view on property taxes for residential non-owner occupiers? that the rates are much higher than for non-residential properties. Do you think that's fair, and do you have a view on that?
I see it as a progressive tax system, right? Which is, I think it's fair.
Right. Also, do you support introducing inheritance tax?
I think the government took it away in 2008. SMEs actually form a backbone of Singapore's economy, and we need policies that support their community and long-term sustainability. At the same time, I also acknowledge that Singapore's position as a wealth management hub means that such topics will remain part of the broader policy conversation. If inheritance tax were to be reintroduced, it would need to be carefully structured to avoid stifling entrepreneurship or punishing intergeneration business succession. Ultimately, our tax policies need to strike a balance between economic competitiveness, social equity, and long-term sustainability.
You talk about how SMEs or small and medium enterprises are a very important part of the economy. And I suppose what you're alluding to is that many of owners of SMEs may be motivated to strive hard so that they build up wealth which can be passed on to the next generation, right? But does passing on property from generation to generation worsen inequality in your view and thus be damaging to society?
I think the government has addressed that with ABSD.
So you think the current tax frameworks already address such issues?
Yes.
If ever inheritance tax were introduced, do you think this will stifle Singapore's success in drawing family offices to set up here and so forth?
That is what I'm thinking that it might, right? Because there's so many other jurisdictions that are trying and vying for family offices. So it's not only Singapore. So they really have to think twice if they really want to introduce or reintroduce inheritance tax.
So can I sum up? In your view, this is something which you generally do not support. Would that be fair?
I think that for entrepreneurs, it could be something that they will think about, and they might go somewhere else to start a business. I mean, we see it happening in Korea or even in the UK where, businesses cannot get to the next generation. They actually had to sell parts of their businesses to support this inheritance tax.
Sure. I guess I'll shift to another major mega trend, right? The aging population. This is an area that your family is passionate about, right? I think your father has explored the idea of building luxury retirement housing, right? Kind of like service apartments, but for the elderly. Do you think this vision could be a reality in Singapore?
I have sometimes different views from him. I told him actually that I think it has to come from a need. So maybe we should start off with assisted living. Building luxury homes, I've been approached many times too. I guess my hesitation at attempting this is thinking about the cost structure in Singapore, which remains very high in terms of construction, labor.
Land cost is also very high, right?
Yes, land cost is very high. One of the main costs, actually. So maybe that's why we haven't seen any of the developers attempting this yet.
So is a project in this sort of space, is it something that either the Daniel Teo group of companies or Fraxtor is looking at the moment? Can we expect to see something soon on this front or not?
We continuously look at the industry. Recently, there is a new site at Chai Chee. We are also looking at it. But I think the whole infrastructure have to come together. Actually, it's not only property developers, the government, the policymakers, healthcare providers, and even insurers. I think you need a holistic approach and it's not about building more nursing homes or assisted living homes. So I'll give you an example. Ping An Insurance, they have built a vertically integrated model that offers insurance coverage across different tiers of the market, combining healthcare, telemedicine, retirement planning, and assisted living solution. So I think it's a model worth studying as it shows how cross-sector collaboration can create more comprehensive support system for the aging population.
And do you think there's money to be made by private sector players in the senior living space?
Well, I mean, I see assisted living as a possibility. as a model where, because there is a need, and we can see that the government has thought about this, and recently they have also been tendering out plots, to address this and maybe to test bid whether assisted living is the right approach.
I guess from a national perspective, there are many efforts being made to cater to the wide-ranging needs of the elderly. For example, the government has HDB community care apartments that are designed to support seniors to live independently while preparing for their future care needs. Meanwhile, neighbouring countries where land and labour costs are cheaper may also be eyeing the chance to cater to the needs of elderly Singaporeans. Rachel, as a private sector player interested in the senior living space, what more can the government do here to promote the growth of this sector?
Well, I wish that, like I said, one of the highest cost component is probably land cost. If we can bring that down, perhaps, we can see more of these types of new living environments being built. I do know that there are Singaporeans now who have looked overseas, but at the end of it, I think if they could, they would still prefer to live in Singapore.
Thank you to my guest, Rachel Teo, Director of Daniel Teo Group of Companies and co-founder of real estate investment platform Fraxtor.
Thank you.
That's it for PropertyBT this time. Happy property hunting. Next week, BT correspondents will be back with an all-new episode on markets, so do subscribe to our channel and check it out. If you have any thoughts or questions about the show, email us at btpodcast@sph.com.sg. I'm Leslie Yee. As always, thank you for listening. See you next week.
This is a podcast by the Business Times. Find more BT podcasts at businesstimes.com.sg/podcasts. Or wherever you get your podcasts. This podcast is meant to provide general information only. SPH Media accepts no liability for loss arising from any reliance on the podcast or use of third parties' products and services. Please consult professional advisors for independent advice.